earlier in the week. It is not intended to become law. It's rather an effort to frame the political debate going into the election season, and that's a debate that I know you're right about to have. Larry, back to you.
John Harwood, we welcome our distinguished guest. Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison is a Texas Republican, and Chris Van Hollen is a Democratic House member from Maryland. He's actually the ranking Democrat on the Budget Committee. All right, Chris, you voted not too long ago. I know you voted against the 20% Eric Cantor small business tax cut. Can you tell me why?
Yes, I can, Larry. This is one of those here we go again moments. What this does is provide a windfall tax break to big hedge fund owners, the wealthiest Americans, and they don't even have to create one single job in order to get the tax break, which is why the nonpartisan Joint Tax Committee has said that the impact on economic activity is so small, so minuscule as to be incalculable. It's also why Bruce Bartlett, former economic advisor to President Reagan, said it would do nothing for the economy. So what does it do? It adds $50 billion to our national debt, produces no positive economic growth, only gives this windfall to people who don't have to create any jobs. It makes absolutely no sense.
All right, Senator Hutchison, what's your reaction to Mr. Van Hollen? And Senator, I just want to add one point. Look, I like most tax cuts, but this one's only 1 year, and it only covers companies of 500 employees or less. That's a little bit gimmicky, as the Wall Street Journal pointed out this morning.
Well, Larry, all of us would rather see real tax reform. We would rather see the corporate rate lowered in general. We want to try to protect the individual tax cuts as we can. But I think anything we can do to help small business keep their head above water with the regulations that are being thrown at them by this administration, with the constant talk of increasing taxes on our job creators, and with the Obama health care staring them in the face as another big cost. I think what Eric Cantor is trying to do, and the House passed, is to say to the small business people, we do want you to hire people. We're going to give you a break in your payroll, and I think it will help spur the economy.
Chris Van Hollen, look, I don't have any trouble with successful people getting incentives. My problem with this story is it's only 1 year, and I don't think temporary tax cuts work.
Well, Larry, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving successful people incentives if they're actually going to result in economic growth and more jobs. Again, we've got the nonpartisan Joint Tax Committee here saying it's so small and negligible they can't even calculate it. And the reality is it won't produce jobs. It will increase the deficit. You know, Larry, when we were talking about extending the payroll tax cut for 160 million working Americans for 1 year, our Republican colleagues called that sugar high economics. At least the Congressional Budget Office and other folks said that would generate some economic activity by putting a little more money in people's pockets. This is 1 year sugar high economics. It's just going to folks who are hedge fund owners, increasing the deficit, doing nothing for the economy, which is why the Wall Street Journal called it a gimmick. I mean, frankly, it's worse than a gimmick because it's going to add $50 billion to our national debt, put on our credit card, which, as all of us know, means someone else is going to have to pay for it down the road.
But, Senator Hutchison, I will say this. I have seen estimates from Gary and Aldana Robbins, former Treasury revenue estimators. They say it would create 100,000 jobs, 100,000. If it comes to the Senate floor, Senator Hutchison, will you vote in favor of it?
Yes, I certainly will, because I think everything we could do that cuts taxes. We did the Social Security tax cut, which Chris just mentioned. I think another tax cut for employers would kind of smooth the waters a little bit for all of the talk of new taxes on our business owners and keeping them from hiring people. I think this is a way to say, you know what, if you will increase your payroll, if you will keep your payroll, if you will just keep people on the job, you're going to get a 20% tax break. I think anything we can do to encourage employment in this environment is a good thing.
Chris Van Hollen,
Larry, let me just say, this doesn't require anybody to keep anybody on the payroll. In fact, because of the 1 year cliff, it creates this perverse incentive for some companies to actually fire people. They have more income to get the lower rate. Yes, it does.
No, it's based on employment. It's based on W-2s.
No. The House version, let me be very clear, the House version, and this is the reason the Joint Tax Committee and others say that it just won't generate any economic activity, doesn't have any condition of hiring. In fact, you can fire people and still get this tax cut.
But Chris Van Hollen, let me just look. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, Chris, with the $5 trillion tax cliff that comes in January? You've got the expiration of the Bush-era tax cuts, the payroll tax cuts, the alternative minimum tax. You know there's potentially very damaging consequences for the economy. Right now, it looks like the economy may be slowing down. Jobless claims are rising again. Employment came in only half as much in March. What are you going to do about the tax cliff, Chris Van Hollen?
Well, Larry, you're absolutely right. What I support is the kind of bipartisan, balanced approach that Simpson, Bowles, and others have recommended. So we deal with our long-term deficit through a combination of cuts and reforms, but we also deal with it in part through additional revenue. We do believe that we should allow the tax rate on the folks at the very top millionaires to go back to what it was in the Clinton administration. We do believe that as part of tax reform, we can lower the rates, but we should also do what those bipartisan groups have done and take some of the revenue generated to reduce the deficit. Because if you don't do it that way, you end up hitting everything and everyone else. That's why people support a balanced approach.
Senator Hutchison, I'll give you the last word on the tax cliff. What are Senate Republicans going to do?
Well, Larry, I think we don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. I think every step we can take that stops the talk of tax increases by giving tax breaks, especially to small business, which creates 66% of the jobs in our country. And I think it's disingenuous to say, well, you can fire people and it's not based on employment. Well, most people's company expenses are employees, and we want that. We want more employees, and this would be an incentive for that. Would I like to see a bigger tax cut? Would I like to see a bigger long-term addressing of this issue? Yes, I would.
Senator, you may be mistaking this bill for something else. This does not require any kind of employment or hiring for the tax cut. It just doesn't.
I understand it.
I appreciate the disagreement. I got to jump out. You're both
Larry.
very, very kind.
Thank you.
Senator Hutchison, thank you. Chris Van Hollen, we appreciate it very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, Dow Chemical riding the nat gas boom. We're going to talk to the